Good afternoon, and welcome to the last Facebook Live Lunch and Learn event of the year with the Center for African American Health. I'd like to start by thanking the community for your generous support on Carl Gives Day. This year has been especially difficult for folks of color. COVID, racial injustice, it's been a lot. And so we really appreciate your support. Your contributions will empower us to continue to work towards achieving health equity and bringing healing and hope to the African American community. So my name is Deidre Johnson, and I'm the CEO and Executive Director for the Center for African American Health. If you are unfamiliar with the work of the center, we've been in the Denver community for more than 20 years with a focus and commitment to improving the health and well-being of the African American community. So if you know me, you know I've been a fan of poetry since my very first poem that I read when I was in grade school. It was a Nikki Giovanni poem. And we wanted to close the year out just to take a moment to celebrate us, celebrate life. And so today we have a special program. It is our first open mic with two extremely talented poets, activists, and educators who are deeply rooted in our community. We have Bianca Mikahn. Bianca is an emcee, poet, digital composer, cultural activist, and educator. She's the executive director of a youth mental health-based organization called Check Your Head, and a partner artist with leading creative educators, creative strategies for change, and youth on record. Explorations in music production recently garnered Mikahn the title of Best Avant-Garde Band from Denver Westward. I recently saw a video, by the way, on Brother Jeff's podcast, on Brother Jeff's show with you. Suzi Q Smith is an award-winning artist, activist, and educator who lives in Denver, Colorado. Her forthcoming collection of poems, A Gospel of Bones, will be available from Alternating Current Press in December 2020, which is now. And her second collection, Poems for the End of the World, will be available from Finish Line Press in June 2021. So I'm gonna let the two of you take it away. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for what you do every day and your gifts to the world. I appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, Deidre. It's an honor to be here today and to celebrate all of the things that keep us well. And that's a lot of what I want to share about today. So Bianca and I discussed beforehand, we sort of did a little rock, paper, scissors. I said, who's going first? She said, you. So I said, all right.
It's a switch up on the classic.
I think that it makes it faster, just being decisive. So I love it. So I'll begin by sharing a poem / recipe / etc. Perhaps it's a creative nonfiction. We'll decide what it is together. But this is one of the ways in which I express myself and keep myself well. So my last name is Smith. I often joke that it means I'm a maker of things, right? So I write poetry, I write stories, I write songs, I write all kinds of things, but I also cook, and I make clothes sometimes, and I paint sometimes, and I draw sometimes, and etc. Right? So I'm a maker of things. And in this piece, I'll describe how I make some of the things I make. So this is called How to Make Love. If you want someone to know that you love them, go to the local butcher. Buy the best whole chicken they have, organs and all. Go to the market with the best produce and buy a few onions, yellow enough to make you hungry, a few shallots, maybe 2 hands full, a heavy box of kosher salt, a pound of carrots so orange they sing, a stalk of celery crisp as winter, a quart of heavy cream thick as a cow's shoulder, a bottle of brandy or cognac depending on what you like, a bundle of bay leaves, fresh if you can find them, a pound of butter. You should already have several cloves of garlic on hand at home. We are talking about love after all, but it might be wise to add a few more to your basket if you feel like it's time. Now, we all have our own methods, but I feel like it's best to sing on your way home and while you're preparing the ingredients. I prefer Anita Baker and Donny Hathaway for this part, and of course Stevie Wonder, but do you? Chop the yellow onions while you sing. Crying may also occur. Best to leave the onions in irregular pieces. Let your love know you chopped them yourself. Cut the carrots into fat coins, then again in half if you feel like it. Wash the celery down to its base, all between the ribs where the dirt likes to hide. I hope I didn't have to tell you to wash everything else. Your onions, your carrots, your hands. I like a heavy knife for all this chopping, but work with what you got. You don't need good knives to love somebody, but it helps. What you do need is a stock pot big enough to hold a whole chicken and all these vegetables plus some water. You should have a cast iron skillet too, but it's all right if you ain't that grown yet. Best to rinse the pot. It probably has some dust or grease on it from sitting on top of the fridge or under the sink or wherever you pull it out from. Now, on low heat, pour a little olive oil and let it warm. After about half a song, add your chopped vegetables to the pot and let them spend some time together under a lid. When they start to feel soft, stir them with a wooden spoon. I hope you have a wooden spoon. As for the chicken, if you haven't worked with a whole chicken before, the organs are probably inside it. You'll need to be able to reach in between its legs and pull them out. This might sound nasty. It might even be nasty, but it's got to be done. And if you can't handle a little nasty, you might not be ready to fall in this type of love yet. Set the organs aside. We'll do something with them in a little while. Don't let the juices spill onto the counter. Put them on a plate or in some type of container. Cover them and put them in the fridge. I'll tell you another time how to make pate. Now that your chicken is ready for cooking, you washed it, didn't you? We talked about this. Wash everything. Pray however you pray. I give thanks for all my food, especially if something had to die. I thank my food, the land it grew on, the people who raised it, who slaughtered or harvested it. You ever think about how many hands and lives are involved on your plate? It's a lot of thank yous. Thank the chicken while you wash its body, while you go all between its legs and pull its organs out. Thank it when you put it in the pot on top of the semi-soft vegetables stirred by a wooden spoon. Let the chicken sit on top of the onions, the carrots, the celery on low heat and under a lid. Let the steam help them get together and fall in proper love for the length of 2 or 3 Nina Simone songs, checking in between. Now, of course, we need to add water. Nothing good can grow without water. Some folks will tell you to use filtered water, which is good if you got it, but we come to the kitchen with clean hands and a pure heart, and we make the best out of what we have, and tap water will do just fine. Add enough water for the chicken to be cooked entirely, enough to let it rise to the top. Now you want to add a couple of bay leaves or more if you like. Here is where we must listen to our own blood. Half a palm of kosher salt, depending on the size of your hands. Let all of this roll into a soft boil, then bring the heat back down to low and walk away for an hour or so. This is a good time to do laundry, but probably not to read because it is too easy to get lost inside a book and forget to take the chicken out. When the chicken is cooked, and I mean falling off the bone cooked, not a shade of pink nowhere, bring it onto a plate and let it cool. It might fall apart in this process. Don't panic. We were about to take it apart anyway, so go ahead and bring it on out in pieces if you got to. Keep the broth on low, very low heat. When the chicken is cool enough for you to touch without cussing, pull the skin off the meat and the meat off the bones. Put the meat aside in a container, then into the fridge, and add the skin and bones back into the pot. We're going to let these bones cook slow for a long time, all night. So go ahead and read now if you want to. Come back to this tomorrow. When you wake up, your whole house should smell like somebody loves you. There might be a layer of gel and fat on the top of your broth. You're welcome. It's good for you. Now you'll strain the broth into another pot with the bones and skin and bay leaves boiled lifeless, all looking at each other in the strainer. You have compost that wants to spend time in your soil. We don't believe in wasting anything in this kitchen. Add this mixture to your compost bucket if you got one, or go ahead and start one in an old coffee can. Keep your broth on the stove, bring it back to a low boil, and add some rice. You washed it, didn't you? I didn't tell you to add rice, I know, but you should already have some. If you don't even have rice, I don't know if you should be trying to cook love dishes just yet. Let the rice cook itself soft as you like it and add the chicken from yesterday back into the pot and let it get warm. Now I know this sounds easy, chicken and rice soup, but if you do all this for your intended and they don't fall in love, you deserve better. And at least now, you know how to cook. So that is one of the ways that I keep myself and my loved ones well during times of difficulty and in times of joy. In fact, my home currently smells like chicken broth because I got some on the stove. Right.
I got a bird I got to break down, actually.
There it is.
Do. And I feel like you're one of the first people I like in real time witnessed making bone broth, like keeping the kitchen all alive and warm and some of that kitchen magic, right? It's beautiful how we find those things. And I was talking with Fatuma Ahmad, the executive director of Frontline Farming, an organization that is, oh my gosh, been so anchoring and incredible for me, with CSA and, food security programs. And I was a part of their CSA this summer, and just garlic upon garlic upon garlic. And had this it was maybe a month or two into shutdown, and had this entire beautiful meditation over garlic and how meant to be life and things are, because how could it, I roasted it in perfect little packets, and it was right there, and it was this thing that just kept
You
me
can roast
going.
it in its own container, right? It's made exactly for that.
And it comes out so and it's just so delicious, like, and I just appreciate the gorgeous universe that can be found in these simple and tiny things, right? Of like cooking a dish, harvesting food.
Absolutely. What are some of the dishes that keep you well?
Well, I definitely need to keep bone broth around right now. Green chili is wildly anchoring for me. I am a Denver gal through and through. 303. Yes, ma'am. I need my chilies. Lox have been oddly recently some good lox capers things. I don't know. The house that I am in has a very and hopefully I can say this as respectfully as possible. Like it only had one owner before us moving here, and it was a Jewish family that very practiced, and I feel like that air has kind of been prevalent around me, this very Jewish spirit of noticing and learning more about some of those traditions. So that's been interesting. But things my mama cooked, macro patties and rice, those easy things. But it brings me to the thought of what to begin with, right? Creatively. And in that notion of this isn't quite food-based, but maybe journey-based. Food is a journey, right? And what food does for me, and the practice of meditation, right? When I first started approaching my own wellness, my own mental health, a lot of that was from that food aspect of how can I fuel myself, right? How can I show up for myself every day? If I've done nothing else, then let me eat. If I'm too anxious, then I will know, by the swallowing. And yeah, an important aspect of my recovery journey and my wellness journey. And for so many folks, I think about like Mo Better Greens, right? Learning so much about how to power ourselves. So maybe that's a bit of a segue into this one here. We are ambling, awkwardly hopeful, along labyrinths planted deeply and mystifying contemplation. Overgrown foliage, partially obscuring faces. Sometimes it is hard to recognize self in the overwhelming barrage of piercing assumption when you don't think like them. Lone advocates sing patience, an upstream tune, versioning empathetic melodies, palms surrendered to an ever-changing sky, condensation of wondering struggle, a rain of why. Question mark droplets which never slay thirst. Collected thoughts pool with the stench of stagnation. Without action cannot spark these fires burning unbearable brilliance. Requiring kindling one should not seek alone. Bundles of hope too valuable to be carried in a single pair of arms. Weary droves seeking salvation. Gingerly traveling down roads of recovery, sometimes silent enough to trick us into aching belief that no one else is here. All other sound merely echo. Rickety red tape bridges always seeming to appear right when our legs have lost their breath. Recovery can feel like ambition swallowing itself, like the weight of impossible, like the sail in each lung deflating, like the first belly flop known to man. But we did not choose this jump off the edge of self. Can only occasionally recall being pushed, and too often the only beings who offer life raft belief are the ones all too familiar with drowning. And oppression always suffocates, even when born the offspring of deep care. Uneducated conclusions only our testimonies can offer compass to. We are the survivors of being lost in plain view. Finally finding fellowship, a garden of vocabulary, peers have planted in soil, nurtured by fossilized pasts, reclaimed futures, full voices the shape of wild flowers able to resist the strongest winds and screaming storms, providing each other shelters of understanding. Rest here. Call me family. We see each other so clearly, and it has never been simple. But with this human family, eyes set to potential futures, we together recognize this health, this wholeness, this happiness, tiny miracles for each other, for ourselves, we make possible when we heal. There's that thing. That piece took me forever to memorize. And I think I still don't expect it to be memorized. I brought a lot of things to read today because I knew we was about to be in here with family. But I just think that's a noteworthy process of how, even as I was articulating these really salient concepts about health and healing and wellness, to embody them, to take full ownership in a way that they are in my memory was still very hard. And I don't know, I think that that's interesting. Of like, I memorize things I'm not supposed to. But this piece about celebrating the journey to wellness, oof, just took forever. I think kind of I didn't want to look at it. I don't know.
It makes me wonder if you were going to offer a ritual to people who are in their own recovery journey, right? So you were talking about like how recovery can feel like a belly flop in all of these different ways, right? And the people who can be the most effective in helping you navigate are the ones all too familiar with drowning, right? And things like that. So those of us who are familiar with some drowning, hey family, you're welcome here.
Family.
Been through it. Right?
Well.
So yeah. what are some rituals and practices, particularly when it comes to journaling? And also you talked about memorizing, and like, what is it? Do you have like mantras or things that kind of help you in that process?
Very much. For me, because wordsmith, um, it became, the writing and journaling became synonymous with kind of creating personal mantra. And hip hop is an amazing outlet for me within that, you know, what it can do to create a basic couplet. One, a lot of times those rhythm and rhyme help us retain it. And then it actually, and we can do this with things we've created or things that other people have created. When we are rapping along to or singing along to music, we're having a moment with whatever piece that is, right? And feeling the feelings. Um, but we are also massaging our vagus nerve. And we are also increasing our oxygen level. And we are also having a deep conversation with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. We're increasing oxytocin. We're doing a bunch of things when we are in even the most informal art practice. And so that just having an art practice, practicing at it, not an art journey, not an art destination, but an art practice, getting in front of an instrument, getting movement, you know, dancing, journaling. And in those moments, allowing for flow, because that's really what literally heals our nerve endings, literally gets our hemispheres talking to each other when we are in flow. And that is this like mindless state of creation, right? Or mindless state of doing. And in there, we can be unedited. We can observe ourselves, ideally without judgment. And most often, if we're judging ourselves, we're not getting there. And so a lot of self-acceptance, you know, we're in this toxic positivity culture that's go get them, go be great, go be happy. Finding safe ways to be sad is really gorgeous, is really valuable. Loving sadness, seeing how sadness, ladenness can teach and guide is something that was really valuable for me, because I got to a point where affirmations, an affirmation is a tiny little weak match in this cave, right? But sitting with sadness and loving where I was at, and finding safe ways to do beautiful. And I think for where we are right now, so much of that, we want this quick way through, right? There's these hopes on a vaccine, and I have no judgment or ire for that. And it's a process, and we got to allow ourselves some process.
I think frequently about the difference between toxic positivity and aggressive optimism. I'm definitely aggressively optimistic. And I think that the best way to sort of describe like sort of my version of optimism and how I feel about that is Lucille Clifton, right? Won't you celebrate with me?
Yes, and so all these things.
The closing lines of that poem are, won't you celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and failed, right? So it's very much acknowledging all of the trauma and just saying, yeah, all of this, see it, it's right there. Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm.
It's totally right there.
Is that a dumpster fire? Yeah, but I'm still here, right?
Like, you know,
there is something that is, for me, that's kind of how I describe, like it still acknowledges a lot of the hardship and a lot of the burden. When we think about the year that this has been, you know, I've definitely lost a lot of family members this year. And I'm sure I'm not alone, right? A lot of us have lost a lot of family members. And so like moving through this grieving process and also through this slowing process, right? And this isolation, right? Which is new to a lot of people. For me, isolation is pretty normal.
Yeah, that chronic life.
Yeah, I've lived with chronic illness for a long time. So those are a lot of things. And granted, I'm pretty well now, but I'm familiar with the process and familiar with the lifestyle of like being able to function from a single place and kind of being, you know, what we lovingly refer to in the church I grew up in as the sick and shut in.
Pray. Do
Right?
not forget to put them on your prayer
You know?
card.
And so I've been there before for many, many years. And so for me, this adjustment has not been much of an adjustment, right? This slowness, but I do realize it's a lot for a lot of people. And this isolation is new. And then when you couple that isolation with economic concerns and like real actual survival fears and displacement and hunger and all of the things that people are going through. And then also so many of us are essential workers, right? And so there's so much, our loved ones are essential workers. And
Yeah.
so being in this space of exposure, there's so many conflicting things. And also there's this slowness and this peace. And for those of us who are able to be at home more and to be able to work from home, like are in such a gifted position and such a blessed position right now to just be able to be slow and be less observed. And I think there's a really, I think that's an incredible gift.
Something there.
Yeah. So there's this year has offered us, I keep describing 2020 as the year that has demanded our full attention.
But isn't that the thing though, is that I think that is so apt. And for many folks, I've heard it described as not, and this is not to be flippant about any of the things that were listed, the loss and the like, and the inherent danger. A lot of folks that this hasn't been their hardest year personally because their entire lives have required constant attention. Right. So yeah.
In many ways for me, and I think also you and I've talked about this, it's just sort of like it's like everyone else is now having years that we've been having for a long time. In many ways that makes this year less hard for us, right? Because I'm used to like when I have to stop, the rest of the world keeps going, and then I have to work really hard when I'm well again.
Yeah.
Oh, are we all stopping? Oh, this is different.
This is brand new.
Is there going to be some grace and compassion around this?
And I'm fortunate in that my life I've had to my chronic illness, and this is a point for the audience. Me and Q have definitely been able to hold each other on is chronic illness. And so mine has shifted in some beautiful ways, but never gone away. So I've been fortunate in that my immediate circle has been one of grace and compassion. But yeah, that increased activation around that has been incredible for public to have. Disorienting, but incredible, very disorienting, to have folks be asking, to have folks think about that in real time of, wait, there's multiple things going on, that multi-partiality, to be actively present in the general community outside of these pockets I've created to be able to exist in all of my energy. Yeah, it's something when the world takes a moment.
It's in many ways though, I'm grateful for a lot of it, and a lot of the things that I have existed in for a long time have made me so much more able to guide people through this now and be a comfort.
Right. Huh.
I've been really grateful for that. Just like, oh, this is not hard for me. This is hard for you. I understand why. And it's not because anyone is better. It just to me is like, oh, this is a place I know I can be your tour guide.
I know these roads, right? Oh, are we concerned about what bodies do? Are we talking about, yes, when things become completely unpredictable, unplanned, when powers that be are not speaking towards your wellness, your safety, your best interest.
And so we know that, like, and of course, in the Black community, we have many sayings like, we gonna be all right. We have many sayings, joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. We have sayings like, there's so many, right? And also like, another one is, we all we got. So building communities of care among us is not anything new, right? So I'd like to share another piece.
Yes, I didn't want to rush you, but I'm like,
let's get into it. So this piece is called Ocotillo, and it's dedicated to, well, I'll just read it. How about that? We'll talk about it if you have questions. So this is Ocotillo. When a seed is planted or buried, abandoned to the soil, it may not know this is a gift. Yes, sis, cry, wail, moan, tear your hair and gnash your teeth, all of that, then wash the dishes. For much of the year, Ocotillo appears to be an arrangement of large, spiny, dead sticks. With rainfall, the plant becomes lush with green leaves. When water is scarce, the leaves turn brown and fall off. Every earth-cracked, thirsty yearning is a seed. Plant it. Let it crane toward the sun and bloom. Do seeds, the small ones, say mustard, get jealous, or pray to become bigger seeds? Do they ever wish they could fill themselves up with air? Is that how they imagine growth? Sometimes I press my fingers toward the invitation of sky and say yes, bend my face to the sun and laugh, remembering how I once clung to the shell I believed was me. With rain, we find Ocotillo swelling, blooming open into bloodshot flowers, earning it the name desert coral. Girl, braid your hair or wrap it up and go, even weeping if you must. Somewhere the sun will touch your face. The hummingbird, migrating through the long desert, relies upon the flowers of the Ocotillo for honey nectar. Did you forget the kindness of wind and its longing for your skin, the unrepentant gaze of desert sky, the rivers that open their mouths to your sorrows, ready to carry them someplace you don't need to go? I reimagine myself daily. I abandon old wounds to the soil until they fertilize it. Everything, even waste, has a purpose. Ocotillo can grow up to 20 feet tall. Some say they live over 100 years. Yes, sis, live. Let your bare feet sink into the mud. I have been afraid and filled with air before, did not know I was a small, hard world becoming large as I unfold. And I will tell you, and I will tell me, I forget and forget my way. What is sweeter than longing for loose, escapable soil is to be rooted in rock, becoming honey on a tender tongue.
Ah, stop. Poets.
I think in these sort of slow moments, this year's offered me a lot of opportunities to sort of pause and ponder, right? And reflect. And I think noticing nature, right? There's like none of this is new.
Yeah.
Being able to really pause and just like stare at a plant or think about the existence of a plant or watch an ant and watching some ants work together, right? Those little moments have given rise to so many poems, right? And things that in many ways I've still felt very, very hurried, very rushed, very stressed out, very, very busy, busier than ever, which is saying a lot.
Isn't that saying a lot?
Thanks so much. And at the same time, being really intentional about finding at least a few minutes for that slowness to just sit with a plant or sit with an animal or watch a squirrel go up a tree, and wondering what lessons there are, right? Staring at the geese, etc. And remembering that like I've been here and I'm not the only one who's been here, and there's many people here right now. And here's what we're gonna do is cry, wrap it up, do what we gotta do, wash these dishes, and remember that seasons happen, right?
For every moment of profound pain, there is, when we are looking for it, I should say, the most profound moment of peace, actually. Like, and it's something that, because of being in pain so often, that one that can be a celebration, right, of its own. It is its own deep knowing. And currently, my aggressive optimism around moments of deep pain, I'm like, whoo, I am alive. Like, that's the only way I would hurt this much is if I were alive. So that's a something. And then within that, there's, even in the worst pain, there are these moments, right? Even if it's just at the top of an inhale, or this, when you're sitting in that presence, there's a moment in every storm, right, where this little peak of sun, and you're like, oh, wow, that particular ray is made so gorgeous in part because it is surrounded by this gray storm, right? So yeah, there's just so much insight, I think, and wisdom to be found in like what is useful about this. That increased search for meaning has definitely padded very harsh and challenging experiences in my life of like, okay, and yes, there's this moment of collision, impact, this is happening. And is this moment so unique? Dare I? Dare I? And I dare a lot of things. I do have some audacity, but dare I, within the millennia of time, space, universe, multiverse, dare I think that I am so unique that this has not happened to somebody before, right? When I think about I am on the occupied space of Turtle Island, like, if I think that my hardship or my journey is so complex and unique, it's just a very, very strong statement, and I think a lot of amazing shoulders to stand on and hands to be held by when we recognize that this since been, like since been and gonna be probably and probably gonna be. As we were talking through your poem, it made me think about this piece that is actually a commission, and that is not to say at all that it means less to me, but that the process by which it was generated was interactive, right? Was something that was really specifically spawned, not by a self-generated moment per se. And it was a really beautiful experience. It was a series that was being held by a mental health practitioner and an arts advocacy organization. And it initially was COVID focused with the responding to pandemic, and then the planning and announcing happened right at the end of March, early April, when the world turned its eye towards the police brutality struggle and the Black Lives Matter movement. And so, of course, all of the conversations shifted a bit. And it was just really interesting because it was at a time where, the slogans, we're in this together, started really, I mean, for some of us, they had always had this kind of really interesting ting to them, but became all the more loaded. And originally the request was, for something to kind of energize the people. And by the end of our series, with the protests that I attended and supported and spoke at, with the continued news, this is where we landed with that. It is a wound whose pain will only be measured after a someday healing unconfirmed, lacking clear finish, maybe a cliff around the corner or drawn out denouement, the screaming silence of an infected exclamation point, a virus making Russian roulette of hugs. We believed even the air could be managed, assumed executive authority over the competence of lung, assigned antiseptic protocol to which cries reach ear, which lives deserve breathing, equity hoarded, but aren't we all minorities when measured in survival rates? Our love has always generated hunger, and hunger has always generated risk. We are virally equalized through our impact on each other, declaring out of our monsoon faces that we'd turn ourselves island if it provided the safest love. While children dream of grandmothers scrubbing the earth clean of what they call the big sick. Their questions pound torsos, reckless with heavy innocence. We are absent of adequate breath to describe accurately this new world, mitigating madness through mundane miracles, home-baked sourdough and human shields, streams and zooms at various sites of implosion. Why walk forward, fiending this road not bathed in fire? As though our feet aren't dressed up kindling, and dry winds play masseuse, our most constant companion. So much arid space to raise. What is it that we are in together? Call it terrible blessing. This neophyte awareness, the delicacy of our interweaving down to each inhale, each cooked meal, each sheltered bed, each met plea. We are only bridge or fence, a collection of yes or one closed denial. White flags waving over our cheeks and chins. This is more eye contact than we have ever made. Tell me again what it is that we are in together. Dear long-time neighbor, whom I've just met, are you also a ravenous neuron starving to be safely seen? To digest in some semblance of sanity? Have you computed your percentages of survival? Are you new to being a statistic? And how does that feel? Pray, maybe recognize more clearly the tired eyes of those who have always been. So let's say there's a way through. If we redefine our image of through, resilience shedding its skin, molting into fully formed compassion, let our bounce be forward, not back. And there is a way through, rife with guides, studied in how to get over, under, and around. They've penned instructions beneath their children's indigo eyelids, since some threats cannot be vaccinated and everyone's aspiring for safety at home. Perhaps we become and remain authentically in this together. So that's where and I'm remembering as I was reading the end that we did some workshopping with this piece.
We did.
Because I didn't want to, I felt an onus to say, ta-da, it's okay. It's okay. We did it. We're doing it. And I had none of these things. I had at best questions.
You landed really well, though. I think with some aggressive optimism, right? Like maybe, are we together? I invite you. Let's be in it.
I know I'm here.
Right. That was a beautiful piece, Bianca.
Thank you.
And I think that means that we are out of time. I just realized it's 2:15 already. We could mention to everyone, like, well, me and Bianca could just read poems and talk to each other for hours and not notice, right? So, and have many times. So,
it's always a pleasure. It's, this is what we've been doing and the tools that we were talking about utilizing. When everything started happening on the public scale, we had systems of care, right? And communities of care that we've had to have, especially as Black femmes. And so I'm just so honored to be with the Center for African American Health and you all bringing us into your space to really close out the year with with connection.
I hope you're eating some wonderful lunch and treating yourself kindly with that food, right? Let it do something good for your body. Make you feel juicy.
Thank you both again so much. I just felt like I was hanging out in your living room with you. I hope you'll both come back. We have to do this again. Thank you for everything you do as a gift, both of you, for as long as I've known you. And so thank you for being there for us. Thank you for what you do. Thank you all for joining us today. And Pinky promise, we'll be seeing them again. Have a wonderful new year. Stay safe. Love on each other. We'll see you in 2021.
Here we go. Here we go. Get your exit, buddy.
We gonna see. All right. But aggressively optimistic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful holiday season and happy New Year.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.